will that hit her at some point?
It might not. My thought is always going to be, I'm glad you're doing well with that, but what if you have these other deficiencies and imbalances that these antidepressants are masking? And what if you end up aging and turning up into a shriveled old prune because you don't have enough estradiol?
I'm watching for those.
Yeah, and you don't have enough progesterone to protect your bones because antidepressants won't do that for you. So I still would look, I'm just going to look at hormones, kind of no matter what.
Oh, I think I agree
to see. But there are people, and I'm mystified by it, how some people can do so well on antidepressants.
That's why I was mystified, and that's why I asked
Yeah,
you the question.
exactly.
I'm watching this.
Yeah. So I don't have a good answer for that, except typically my experience has been with the people who are on antidepressants and are doing well are people who don't have to deal with a lot of stress. And
maybe
then when
they
they
could be the
do,
same sort of
it
people that could
changes.
eat McDonald's or whatever.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, an anomaly. Yeah.
I have a question.
Let's hear it.
About pituitary gland.
Yes.
So if it's malfunctioning,
Mhm.
which I was told mine might be, how do you test for that? Is that the FSH or
Well,
is that just
FSH,
not really a test for that,
TSH, pituitary, there's not really a good test to definitively diagnose that. That would be more in a diagnostic machine kind of test, whether it would be an MRI or CT scan or something on that level to look at the pituitary. But anytime the hormones are not at the levels they should be, that affects the pituitary. So there are a lot of tests
Is it
that
caused
could
by the
point to it.
pituitary, or is it?
Chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
I think it can be, my experience is that it can be either way, and it's hard to find out. So what I do in assessing pituitary imbalances is the big run of all the hormones, because it's like we're as strong as our weakest link. And if we can find out that our estradiol is low, or progesterone is low, or testosterone is low, and we correct those by taking some good kind of hormones, then it's less effort on the pituitary.
Is there something
It's sort
you
of like
take
mama
for the
can rest
pituitary?
if the kids are taken care of. You know what I mean?
Is there? Yes.
And
is there
yes,
something you can take for the pituitary?
yes, yes, absolutely.
where the-
Yeah, and if you're blood type O, then I would put you on pituitary from the animal. If you're blood type A or blood type B, I'd still put you on the pituitary from a cow, and because you may do fine. Some people do, some people don't, but that's what I would try. And then the other things, I'm right back to the ashwagandha and the rhodiola. Anything, because I look at the pituitary gland as the mother of all these children in our body. And the mother worries about the children when they're not well. So as a child, an organ, something gets better, then the mama doesn't have to worry as much. And in that way, there's less stress, and oftentimes the body can heal in the absence of stress or under less stress. But with prolonged undue stress, it's a constant pull on it.
When you're talking, this is another question.
Yeah.
When we're talking about stress, we're not only talking about external stress. It
Yeah.
could be the stress of
Oh.
the whatever's going on.
Yes,
inside.
from the body, absolutely.
Okay.
Try separating those. I mean, you really can't.
Right.
Because when we have an internal stress, we have an emotional energy. Liz knows all about that. She wouldn't be in business if that weren't true, and I wouldn't be in business if the other weren't true. So ideally it's working on both of those simultaneously, and having other people around us kind of get better also.
Start getting tests for people around.
Yeah, really. Yeah, I recommend that you have your family and friends tested and treated. Not a bad idea.
I have a
Yes.
question about it. This isn't the case anymore for me, but when I was younger, I was very fluffy and voluptuous, and I felt like my body got away from me, that I couldn't really control my appetite I couldn't control, my body shape. As I got older, I improved my diet, but I was just wondering what was going on with that big fluffy woman body that you can sometimes have, where it's it's ba ba boom, but it's really not your favorite thing, and it doesn't feel like you're really in charge of it. It just feels like you just get puffy every time you eat anything or do anything.
Right, and a lot of that is estrogen, and a lot of that typically is estrone. Because again, when I say estrogen, I'm talking about a group of estrogen kind of hormones, and largely it is estrone. It just makes a woman heavier. So we could have a case where your thyroid's perfect, but your estrogen is high. And then I've got to throw in the question, how much wine or alcohol were you having?
No,
None?
no, that was very,
Because
very,
that
very small.
alcohol really feeds.
Yeah. No,
that
during
problem.
those years it would be maybe once a week a glass of wine or something like that. But
not so much.
definitely not a lot of drinking ever, really.
Yeah.
But
Cortisol, stress.
yeah, there was stress. for
Yeah,
sure.
because the cortisol produces the estrone. That makes us heavier. And cellulite, retained fluid. Because
Yeah, retained
estrone is really hard for the kidneys to break down and eliminate. And so some people will just get heavy and they can't get rid of it hardly until you get that circulation going and the kidneys working and work on the liver and so forth.
At a young age, to balance that kind of thing, you would think that that it's something having to do with the relative estrogens, and what would you do for that?
Well, I would do blood tests, certainly, and I would expect to find a low progesterone. With there, I'd expect to find cortisol levels either pretty high or pretty low. Because with cortisol, neither is good, except for you to look at your life events. So if you've been under a lot of stress and so forth. But I see a lot of that, quite frankly. And I typically find it in a thyroid that just isn't able to manage this body. It's just not strong enough. And I typically find that in the T3 portion. I just, in my practice for 30-some years, I've just never ever seen very much low thyroxine. But I see a lot of low iodine.
Liz, how old were you when you were fluffy?
Maybe up to about, well, it was probably age like 15, 16.
But see, I think that's what you're supposed to be. Now, I've always learned that you need, and teenage girls should not diet, because apparently you need that teenage fat in order to give yourself a lot of strength for your older age. So
I know,
that's-
I've heard that. I've
heard that.
I've heard that, but and it kind of makes sense, but I don't believe it.
Oh, well, I don't know, but if she was 15, I
Yeah.
could say that's
Well,
wrong.
I mean,
But I think that
I think that there, because I've been bigger than I am now, and felt like it was the right kind of balance of water. You get that puffy feeling,
right.
and then but I remember at that age thinking, this just doesn't feel right. This feels like something's off. So, but I agree with you. The too thin thing, I don't
They
think
just
is
don't.
good.
And then testosterone also. It could have been a testosterone
Yeah.
deficiency.
Yeah, that also seems, because I didn't really have hair under my arms, and I didn't have a lot of those.
Along
Yeah.
those lines, I've just visited a friend who has a 9-month-old baby, who's like a baby giant who eats all the time and eats everything and doesn't eat baby food, and he'll have salsa and whatever else. And I mean, he is huge. He's wearing 18-month-old clothes. And so I was thinking, well, yes, because they're getting ready for a growth spurt. And you notice when, when teenagers are getting ready for a growth spurt, they will get kind of heavy. And so maybe this
And
baby
then grow.
is getting that way, but I mean, I've never seen such a big thing. Well, I mean, he's not obese, but he's big.
But it can also be, when we're like that, sometimes the food that we're eating really doesn't nourish us.
Mhm.
And then we just want more and more and more.
I wonder if maybe that's why the baby's eating all the time. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had a baby that ate all the time. He's still huge. So
How big is he now?
now he's 6'5" and almost 300 almost.
Okay, so maybe this baby. She's talking linebacker probably in the future. or
Yeah,
something.
and
I
it
have.
could be. But again, it's like, I mean, with babies, I don't know about hormones or hormone studies, but I always think of testosterone deficiency because testosterone's like that lean, mean fighting machine, and people are just lean. And yet, we look at some athletes, and they're the big, like Harrison, on that bigger edge, and then we have the quarterbacks who are leaner and the running backs and all that sort of thing, and they all have hopefully good levels of testosterone. And I've always, well, not always, but I've said for probably about the past 15 years that if I weren't doing what I'm doing, I would become a lobbyist so that to try to enable athletes to be able to take testosterone, bioidentical testosterone, the hormones, if they need it. Because the reason that injuries occur and they get to where they don't heal is because their testosterone levels drop too. And so as long as it should be in a certain standard, I think they should be able to take it. And it bothers me that they can't. I mean, I don't like the excess, and it's like so many things when they can't, when you know that you're losing it, and we have proven records that your testosterone is lost, dropping rapidly, then you have to go out and take some androgel or get some other things or steroids like a lot of the athletes have done just to stay in the game. And I just think that's wrong. They shouldn't have to go to that extent, and they should be entitled to take it. So what else?
Do you have questions? Anybody over there?
Well, yeah, I was going to ask about, again, I was reading all day about, because I've had this awful fibromyalgia pain, which I never had before, but now I have. And so I was reading about hormone levels.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of studies that say that, low estrogen or is a cause of this, or low hormones in general.
Mm-hmm.
But they said that it should be at least 100, and you're saying just 80?
It depends on the age, depends on the person. If we took one of those progesterone women that I'm talking about,
Yeah.
the one who sat in the back and did all the work so
Yeah.
Marsha Clark could go out and make her mistakes. And we gave that woman the estrogen that we would think that she would have by statistics, she would not feel like herself. She wouldn't accomplish what she's here in life to do. It would not be her anymore. So yes, certainly they can be better. But when I'm assessing women, I find out where they are and how they feel and how they would like to be and how they are when they're ovulating, how they are just before their period, and whether or not that's comfortable for them or not. And some women have told me, I hate my ovulation, I hate my periods because I feel sexy, I have these thoughts that I don't want to have, and they don't like that at all. And other women, those are their prime times. So it's a matter of really looking at who are you, how are you, what is within your comfort zone. Yes.
So how do you keep those sexy thoughts not just during ovulation?
Having
'Cause I
health.
hit 50 just
Mhm.
last week,
Yep.
so I want to make sure that I
Right.
don't lose.
Yes.
What would I test for to make
You know,
sure?
and this is another anomaly to me. I have tested men and women where their testosterone levels are 17 and they have a tremendous sex drive. And it doesn't make sense to me except that they also have a significant amount of estrone and not estradiol. Just to throw this out there, and then I'll come back to yours and answer that. But I see a lot of women in their 50s and 60s, and I see some husbands of those women. And the men in their 50s and 60s have higher estrogen levels, meaning estrone and estradiol, than the women do. And that's wrong.
But
That is just for prostate cancer and so forth. That is just wrong. Don't ever allow your husband's estrogens or your guy's estrogens to be higher than yours, because then it's just more force. it's in that way, it's just kind of like another form of testosterone. But back to you and to your question, how do you keep that going? It would be to assess the thyroid and to assess the testosterone, all those tests that I'm wanting on everybody all the time, and making sure your testosterone and your estradiol stay at optimal levels.
So how do I know if I'm just not being, I just don't feel like it anymore?
Do you feel that way?
No.
Do you feel normal?
And how do I know if I feel
But was
normal?
it just the number that you're thinking about?
No, I'm just making sure that, I have one kid at home and
Mhm.
she's there another year and then
Mhm.
I'm
She's
the
out.
agent.
Yeah. I can't
So
wait.
I gotta wait a year.
Yeah. But so the ideal would be, since you have that fire in your furnace and those thoughts and so forth, and that is appealing to you, then it would be to measure to see where you are now and use that as the best baseline we could come up with. And then over time, if those levels drop and you do the testing, then you would know what to do for it. But that's when we really have to look at, is it just hormones, or are you disappointed in this, or disappointed with dating, or you just find out that there's, one good guy and I've got him. He's mine, he's the only one. So there can be other things to factor into that, certainly. But I love optimal level hormones for life. And then one thing that I was talking with one of you about before we started is that if you're taking hormones, the only way you really know you're taking enough is if you take too much. Because people say, I'll say, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing fine. Well, what's that mean? Well, I'm doing fine. Well, do you this? Do you that? Oh, well, no. So I want them to increase their levels for about 4 to 10 days, maybe a couple of weeks, depending on their level of sensitivity and their comfort zone. And are you feeling better or are you feeling worse? Well, I think I might be feeling a little bit better. Okay, good. So let's go up one more time. Take you up until you're saturated and it's too much. If you're not taking enough hormones, it's really hard to assess unless you're having the same symptoms for the reason that you started taking hormones, like hot flashes or night sweats or insomnia, depression, all those memory issues. So, but it's to get these optimized, and that's where we can't really go by anybody's standards or anybody's books. We have to go by what they are for us. Because I have some women who are in their 60s now, and they're on my just over the, well, not over the counter, but non-prescription forms of estrogens, and they're doing great on those levels. But their lives are also pretty balanced. They're not out leading parades and, firing up the engine much anymore. So those levels are really good and really stable. Mm-hmm. But they stay within that zone, within their comfort zone. So when they do have some stress, I'm going to say then you need to kick up both the estradiol and the testosterone and see how that works. And then once you say, okay, I must have too much testosterone because I'm feeling anxious and I just want to hurt somebody and I don't care. If you want to hurt them but you care, that's one thing. But if you just really want them out of your way and you only think good thoughts, that's too much of a good thing is a bad thing. And you can feel that way at different times. And part of that can be because of cortisol soaring. And at the same time, your estrogens are kind of soaring. So between estradiol and testosterone, it's kind of hard to figure out. So the reason I'm so pro testosterone for women is because testosterone can help in a lot of ways without having the cancer risks. And everything I've said tonight is pretty much my opinion, and it's my opinion, which is as valid as your doctor and whoever writes those books and their opinions based on what they've seen or what they believe. But we have to have opinions. We have to start somewhere. But I like it when opinions are based on an individual's experience and not from somebody else's writing. So it's great that you're reading that. But you have to see, so where do I fit in to this? Where do my levels feel good? And so you've had your levels measured in the past, and then creep up on those. And then when you feel like you're either at a really good level or you're not at a good level, those are the good times to measure. Then you kind of get a sense of what your body needs. But when a woman tells me she's fine, I'm not going to measure her blood tests. I want you when you think you're just the best ever or you're not doing so well. Because I don't need something to tell me that you're fine.
When you-
Yes.
Speaking about how you feel, when your hormones are a little bit out of whack, can you feel it sort of in like your ovaries area?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And
Is that
some,
like it's too much then when you feel it when you feel it like there?
well, it not necessarily. It can be. So the only correct answer is that yes, it can be. But what happens is that when you don't have enough estrogen and your ovaries are shriveling, and then you get your estrogens, and again, I'm just going to use that word estrogen, you get your estrogen in there, then they start plumping up and kind of coming back to life. You'll feel that. And it could feel like a twinge of some kind.
Yeah.
It can feel a certain amount of pain. And so what I say is, get in touch with it and say, does this feel like a good thing? Or does this feel like a bad thing? And then you kind of palpate the area, kind of push around and see if it feels sore. And then you think about, how much alcohol have I had? How many carbohydrates have I had? Are there any other outside things? Soy. I hate soy. I'd ban soy if I could, even for vegetarians, because it's so bad. It's in that estrone category. So I don't know, do you do much soy, Miss Blood Type A? Okay, I think that's a good thing.
I do best on meat right now.
Uh-huh.
Um,
And that's right now. So if
Yeah.
that changes, then
I will
you'll
know.
change with it. Yeah, you'll know. But yeah, it's getting that level that is right for you and taking it up to the higher end of it, but staying in touch with, your comfort zone. I'm a strong woman of strong faith, but sometimes my fear is stronger than my faith. So I'll go with that. So we can have faith in our fear, that our fear is a strong power that is leading us or guiding us. And we need to pay attention to it and embrace it and own it instead of being scared of it. You haven't said much of anything. I have to hear from you.
Well, I don't really have any specific questions. I just came because I'm interested in holistic.
Uh-huh.
So,
Oh, good.
Yeah.
But nothing specific. Okay.
no,
I just
nothing
wanted to didn't want to let these other gals out talk you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what else?
I can ask a question about breast
Mhm.
cancer
Uh-huh.
and hormone replacement
Mhm.
and the testing for the breast cancer gene.
Yes. Yeah.
How do we put these things together?
I know that genes are a big deal, but I'm not big on the BRCA alone. Again, I like to look at all the estrogens, the estrone, the estradiol, and I like to look at the relationship to progesterone there. And there's the estradiol. The estrogens can go to a deeper level. They can go to like a 16 hydroxy kind of estrogen that is really a bad estrogen. But to me, the key is to identify those and get on them and curcumin or calcium diglucarate and break those down. That's where my clients have success.
Okay.
So it's identifying those. And then besides that, get your pens and papers ready if you want to write these down. They're called cancer antigens, but since people don't like to say the C word, cancer word, they use tumors. But there's a test called CEA, which is a tumor marker, and that's a carbohydrate kind of antigen that would let you know that if those numbers are high, it could be a cancer spread through your body. not just contained in one spot. Then there is CA 15-5 that has to do with breasts, and another breast cancer marker called CA 27.29. Those are both for breasts. Then there's CA 125, that's a cancer antigen for ovaries. And then there's another one called CA cancer antigen 19-9 that is more for lungs, pancreas, digestive kind of thing. So I love ordering those antigens because you can see what's going on and kind of where. So when I see the both of the breast cancer antigens come back at high levels, and right now I have 2 men in my practice, and one's 70 and one is just younger than me, he's 68, and they both have high breast cancer antigens.
Because they have more estrogen because they're older.
And their estrone levels correspond with it. So when I believe the way I do, I was born in Missouri, show me again, and then let me continue to see it. So that's where I've made a lot of my own conclusions and own decisions. And so I see those levels, I do the treatment, I see the levels get better. I see PSA, prostate specific antigen, that's an inflammatory marker. So if the PSA is high, it says the man has inflammation in that area in his prostate. So I want to look at his estrone, his estradiol. I want to look at his progesterone and his testosterone, DHT, all of those. Typically what I do, I find low progesterone. I put him on progesterone cream, rub it right on the spot, and then I see high estrone and sometimes high estradiol also. But it's the estrone that is the scary one. And the reason, like when I started out, I said that the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine announced from the platform that estrone is the estrogen of menopause and aging. It's because our estradiol isn't produced anymore, and because of stress from that and the efforting from that. And that's what we really need to be mindful of.
What about family history in all of that?
Family history is significant, but what if your mother and your grandmother had a lot of estrone and low progesterone? There, in a sense, that's genetics. In a sense, that can be environmental and put in the DNA kind of genetic category. And then if your mom took DES, diethylstilbestrol, to prevent a miscarriage, then that's at greater risk for children having cancer. So diet is a huge part of this. And again, we're back to the Roundup, we're back to the glyphosates. So if it's not organic, it likely has Roundup in it. And that's just, time's a wasting, clock's ticking.
How would you detox from that?
Damon curcumin, calcium diglucarate largely, those primarily, and then other things like liver flushes with lemon juice and olive oil, different things. Just it depends on the other organs and how the rest of your blood tests and we're strong as our weakest link. So if it's kidneys, then we have to work on the kidneys and herbs and things and other supplements for that. Or if it's liver, then we need to work a lot on digestion and get that flowing. Before we go on, did I not answer any of your questions to your satisfaction? Did I cut short or get off track on anything that you feel like I didn't fully address it? Okay, so anything else? Anything about you and anybody else? I'll just take any question.
Well, I'd like to know, should I take something else for this fibromyalgia that's bothering me? Except more hormones?
Maybe more vitamin D, making sure your vitamin D level is good. And then for fibromyalgia, I like lauricidin.
What is,
Lauricidin, it's a form of monolaurin that's antiviral. Because I think that with the inflammatory markers, like with fibromyalgia and Epstein-Barr virus, I think that there's that virus connection. So I treat inflammation and virus as well.
then maybe I don't have it because all my inflammation markers were low.
Then that's a really good point
So,
for fibromyalgia.
so I don't,
Mhm.
maybe I don't have it, really.
Yeah, I wouldn't own it.
Maybe it's something else.
I would call it
Maybe, I don't think I
a
have it,
maybe.
though.
But I look at deficiencies and imbalances, and if I can find those and treat those first, and then another way I treat fibromyalgia kind of symptoms is I have a product called CMG that's collagen for connective tissue, MSM, which is a form of sulfur that's really good for inflammation, and then glucosamine with the hyaluronic acid and all those things in it. And sometimes I was up in Carmel seeing clients in my office there, and I didn't have my CMG, and I was lugging around 2 briefcases and a purse and carrying something here. And my body was just aching and no CMG. So I called one of my clients and said, can you bring 3 CMG for me? And I was sitting there and my neck was aching, my back was hurting, my arms were hurting, and I was just in my little pity party and upset about myself. And I took the 3 CMGs, and literally 20 minutes later, it was like I had taken painkillers or something. So they go in and they repair. And taking, most people would take 1, like you would, or 2, but I needed that 3rd one to get me by. And then the next morning when I woke up, I was fine. And if I hadn't done that, I would have been ho-hum, poor pitiful me, I'm aging, and all those things.
Oh, yes,
All
that's
those things,
exactly
it's
right.
the tearing down of the collagen. And I love the CMG because it's so anti-aging. Because of the collagen and the connective tissue, the joints, all that we use them up, we wear them down. So it's one of my favorite anti-aging tools. CMG. You may even do well with a half a tablet or a quarter, and I would start small. So what else?
No.
I feel a question over there.
Oh, I'm
Anything?
just gonna come and see you because I have lots of,
And you'll bring all your blood tests.
I have all my blood tests are in my phone these days,
Oh, okay.
but I can try to.
Print them out. You can print them out because it's just, to me, people will say, are you psychic? Are you intuitive? And I go, yes, with blood tests in front of me because that's my crystal ball. I can see right into your soul and right into your spirit with those. So are you good?
Yeah, I loved what you said
What?
about the blood test and diet, something I never knew about.
You,
It was
oh,
brand new, something new information. I'm so glad I came.
oh, good,
I mean,
good.
It's absolutely brilliant.
Anna came to the first seminar that I
I
did
know.
in Montecito, like
Oh,
what,
this is a
3 or
long-
4 years ago, and she was the only one who came.
Oh.
It was Anna and Michelle, and she came under a great referral, and nobody knew anything about me, and here she was, and we've been together ever since.
Yes, through a lot of things.
Yes, and she takes well care of herself. She doesn't settle for good care. She takes well care. Yeah. So nothing else, nothing but nothing going once, going twice, going 3 times. Oh, thank you all so much. Thank you, thank you.
No, thank you. It was so informative.
Good, good. Shelley, how do I?
I was watching you on the camera the whole time.
Oh,
It
you
looked so
were?
fabulous. I mean, not the
Oh
whole
my
time.
gosh.
but so
Oh
good.
my
Look,
gosh.
so great.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah.
You
Thank
really
you.
look good, and you're so
Yeah.
well spoken and so